All right, Level Up Grappling Podcast. We are back. Coach Brian here, straight out of PCI Jiu Jitsu, Mission Viejo, California. Now, today we have a Brazilian Jiu Jitsu legend and a Southern California Brazilian Jiu Jitsu legend. It's very important that I tell you guys this because you don't come into Southern California without knowing you're coming into his home and how much he has developed. And I want to give a special shout out and thanks to Jason Hughes, our man and friend, who not only helped my shoulders, but connected me so that we could get this legend on today, Paulo Guillobel. Paulo, thank you for coming on to the show.
You're welcome, Brian. I'm really glad to be here.
So let's start from the beginning. Um, Walk us through your martial arts journey before you even came to the United States. How did you even get into jiu-jitsu? What got you inspired? Were you doing other martial arts ahead of time? How did you get into it, and how did you get here?
Okay, so my story started back when I was 13 years old. I never done martial arts before until then. I was like I always loved sports, but I was more like a basketball player at the time. I used to play basketball. So in school, I was started like I have a couple episodes of contact with bullies, right? So um, I have first started with two of my friends getting personal, my best friends getting bullied by this guy, by two guys, and then I always seen them getting bullied and I could do nothing about it. And then eventually got to the point that this other guy from the eighth grade, so I was seventh grade at the time, the guy, you know, for personal reason, I ended up telling something about him to my cousin, my cousin, which knew his girlfriend, and then she told the girlfriend anyway. So the story ended up that he want to come after me because of that, you know. Uh, and so he got me there. Had a group of people, and we were at school, and then he kind of like in like a recess, he just got me, put me on the pillar, stretching me out in front of everybody, and tried to threaten me that he's gonna beat me up every time he sees me and everything. So from that day on, like my life became very uncomfortable because I used to live in Barra da Tijuca, and I used to go to the mall. I had one big mall there at the time, and then I used to bump into this guy over there. I used to bump into this guy in every place, and then he was always like looked like he was always around and looking at me and chasing me. Uh, so I was started looking for martial arts, and I remember the first martial art I was thinking about was karate. Because I didn't know much about jiu-jitsu back then. Even though it wasn't very popular at the time. Like for us, like you said, we watch TV. Like for everybody that watch TV, karate is usually the number one sport because you see Karate Kid and all those movies. So I remember going to karate school. And I looked from outside. I didn't walk in. And, they have like, those big windows, and I look inside it, and one of the guys there that were green belt at the time was the bully that was bullying my friends. So like, man, I don't know if I can be able to walk in here. First of all, I mean, I don't like that guy, and how can I defend against that guy if he's going to be always ahead of me in ranks? He was stronger. I think not too long after that, I was hanging out in this neighborhood, which I have a lot of friends there. And then we bump into some people. They were like some friends. They like were doing jujitsu. They were already yellow belt at the time. One was like not yellow belt, but a lot of them yellow belt, like a kid's belt. And they like, Paulo, you should come here. And so I was like, man, I have to go there. I have to do something. And it seems to be really nice what they doing there. So I recruited like three more guys, and then we went there. And it was Jorge Pereira school. He was teaching in this place called Nova Ipanema. So I went there, and then I fell in love. The first day we were training a lot of self defense. We The classes, people used to slap each other, we used to kick each other, you know what I mean? Used to do group against group. We used to do 2 against 4. So was a lot of different in jiu-jitsu nowadays. And I remember like feeling like, man, that's exactly what I'm looking for, like self-defense. That's made me feel really good. And then since then I've been practicing it until this very day. And I was with George this whole time until I moved to United States.
Now, how did you get to the United States? I think this is an interesting story. I've heard whispers and bits and pieces, but I want to hear straight from the horse's mouth. How did that happen?
Well, first it started in like when I was 17 years old, like the desire for coming to the United States, right? Because I was really good friend of High and Gracie, you know, Hanzo's brother. So, we grew up as we grew up together in jiu-jitsu. We were like yellow belts together, we got our belts together. So basically we were the same belt, the same weight. We fought a couple times too on tournaments, but we started to hang out together. We both live in Baja, and we started going out together. And one day we were like in this club. We were like 17 years old, and then Hyan has end up fighting this guy, and this guy was like the son of one of those. I would say a sheriff in Brazil. We don't have sheriffs in Brazil. We call delegado. So, but he was a son of one of the sheriffs of this place, kind of the suburb. It was a very hardcore place, neighborhood. And this guy, he had guns. So that day, we got stuck in the club, and then the guy, went out and got his gun and came after Hyan, and Hyan was staying with me. And, and the club called the police. It was like the whole thing. Like the guy came with the gun. We have to run out. We jump out of behind the. I jump. I jump. I jump behind the bar. And then it's like, oh my god, the guy's gonna come and shoot everybody. And then they called the police, and we found a way back. While the police was there, we found our way out. So we got out of the place. Uh, the guy kind of chased us, but because Ryan before coming to my car, he went to another car to pick up his Nintendo or PlayStation. I think it was Nintendo time. They thought he was in another car, so I just went really quick on my car and then turn off my lights and turn a corner in the street there and stay under a tree that was like dark. So it was like, then I saw those guys passing, and that was done for us. For us, we got out of that situation. They followed the other guy. They ended up actually shooting the other guy's car. The guy flipped the car. Nothing happened to the guy. But a guy's car flipped, and I just found out that like the day after. But so, anyways, that took us to have the situation that I had to be sent to the United States because this guy supposedly was after him, and then he came. We talked to his dad, Hobson, Gracie. And then his dad said, "Oh, we're gonna send you to the United States." And I said, "I only go if Paulo goes with me." And then I like, oh my God, man, now I'm gonna have to go to the United States. I wasn't thinking about it, but at the same time, I liked the idea. I was like, man, we're gonna go there. We're gonna stay at the Gracie's house. And then there was it's very early at the time. It was like that was like 17 years old. It was like in early 1990s. So I thought it would be a great experience. And then from that day on, we ended up not going because they sorted everything out. Somehow the guy stopped chasing him, and then everything was, they find a way to negotiate the situation. Hyan's dad and the guy's dad, I believe. I don't know exactly what happened, but I just know that okay, that was it, right? Then the dream of coming over here kind of die a little bit. So but it stayed in my mind. I was like thinking about it. And in 1998. And then George, my instructor, he moved out of Rio de Janeiro. We were training there. He was teaching us. I think maybe 1998. I don't know exactly. I think 1998. Are you hearing me? Because it's
Yeah,
reconnecting there.
perfect. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Listening.
He went he went to São Paulo, and São Paulo is another state, so I was pretty much me and a couple of the guys. I was the second highest rank there, you know. So we kind of like me, Leo Dalla, Van der Braga. We were holding the fourth, and I was thinking, man, I'm not learning anything else because now I'm the teacher, you know. And I was a little bit too early for me to be the teacher. I was like 22 years old, black belt, I just got my black belt. So I was like, man, maybe I should go to the United States and train there. And the reason I didn't want to go to São Paulo, São Paulo wasn't like a city that I was attracted to. I was like, it's too much of a big city. I'm like ocean guy, that's why I live in San Clemente, like I came to California. So I was thinking, okay, well, I think I'm going to go to, California again, like I was supposed to go a long time ago. And that what brought me to the Machados, because right before I was actually going to come here to train with Hickson Gracie, because Hickson was George's original instructor, you know, and then George, go with Hickson, and then I started bumping into a lot of people in Brazil that came from here, and they were all talking about the Machados, and I knew the Machados, I knew Jean Jacques. Uh, in Higgin, I knew of Higgin, but I never talked to Higgin, but I had a chance to watch Jean-Jacques and talk to Jean-Jacques Machado and watch him compete while I was growing in jiu-jitsu. And some people say, "Oh, go with Machado's because they're over there, they're always teaching." You know, Hickson at the time he was teaching one class a week, I guess, on Wednesdays, um, and everything else was I think Limão teaching and some other people. So, I was convinced then. I said, man, okay, I'm not going to go with Hickson, but I'm going to go with Higgin, you know. And Higgin, when I grew up, he was Hickson and Higgin was
Yeah.
the two guys, like they the two top, you know what I mean? Like all I heard about those two guys. And I say, man, I don't have a chance, I will have a chance to be with Higgin the whole time, you know. So and coincidentally, Johnny Machado went to Brazil
Hmm.
because he was here with Higgin, and he decided to move to Brazil. And then so I saw him in Brazil, and it's like, man, yeah, go over there, go with Higgin, like he needs somebody there to help him out. And I'm like, okay, so he made the connection. He called Higgin. I actually didn't even talk to Higgin when I came here. Uh, so I talked to, I don't know if you heard about Gerson Sandinito, we call Gerson.
Yes.
So we call Gersinho, right? So I talked to Gersinho. I also knew Gersinho a little bit, but this good friend of mine, Rodrigo, knew everybody. So he's like, make the whole connection for me. And they say, okay, Paulo, go to Gersinho. And Gersinho said, you can stay in my house. And then when I went, and then I remember coming over here. And then first thing I did, I said, I want to go to the Machado school. So I came out of the airport, got in a car, right into the Machado school. And then I remember Higgin was there, and then the first time I actually was introduced to him. And he was training for the Abu Dhabi at the time. So it's funny because I just got out of the the airport out of flying like 14 hours, and he's like, Paulo, do you want to train? So, well, wow, sure. I was like, I'm not gonna say no, I'm just coming over here. I'm trying to prove something to this guy. I'm not gonna say no. So that's where we met. We trained for 30 minutes. The guy smashed for 30 minutes, which was pretty cool because like I was in shape to go and train hard. And Higgin, he was like put his weight, and with time, he stopped passing my guard and getting side control, and and going around. It looked like he was at one point he was just like playing with me. So that's how I got here, pretty much.
You know, that's so funny. And I love that story because you'll understand this, Paulo. When I say this a lot on the podcast, and people don't know until they know or until they feel it. It's one thing to watch moves, watch techniques, and you know, even me and Chris Howder the other day were talking about it. It's another thing to feel technique and feel what somebody can do. And there really isn't much quite like feeling Hegan, which I always like to say. When you feel Hegan, that's just a different level of pressure and understanding in terms of bodily control.
Yeah, no, yes, for sure. He knows how to put his weight exactly where it's supposed to be. That's for sure.
So, okay, so then walk us through. So you get there, he gets you on the mat, and God bless you for doing that after like, you know, more than 15 hours of a flight to get off the plane and to get on the mat with that monster. Boy, it's like you either are the luckiest man in the world or just straight up had a death wish. So, how does it go? And then he goes to do the tournament. How does it go from Paulo Guillobel comes to show up, and then all of a sudden you're there and you're teaching
Yeah,
classes, right?
yeah. So, well, I think I left a good impression. Like we came there, we trained, and then we have we talk. Well, it was a good train. I think he respected the fact that it was a good train as well. I was I was giving my all, right, to be able to don't embarrass myself the first time I see the guy that we training with. You know, uh, so, Higgins, he's one of the nicest guy in the world, you know. So I didn't know him much at the time, but immediately I saw, man, this guy is so nice. And at the time, he had this Brazilian guy teaching the beginners. Uh, I forgot his name now. He was just passing by, and he was about to leave. So he said, Paulo, hang here another month, and you can teach the beginners. The beginners would be like with the beginners started there at 8 o'clock at night. So we used to have a class from 6 to 8, and then the beginners would be from 8 to 9:30, I think. You know, so in a month after this other guy left, I started teaching beginners there, and then and train there. My goal when I came here was not to teach jujitsu. I never like my goal over here was to learn jujitsu. So I didn't say, "Oh, I'm gonna go to the United States to teach." My goal is like, I want to learn from the best. And now I have this chance, and to come to another country and have a chance to train in one of the legends. So that's what my goal. So I try to like daily. I was like training. I remember Roger, his brother, I was training and teaching in the morning, and then I used to go to his class. And then Higgin teach in the afternoon, and then got to the point I used to go to Jean-Jacques and Higgin, and then teach my class. So it was like going to Tarzana 3 times a week, training with Roger 2 times a week in the morning, and Higgin 6 o'clock, and then teaching at night, and working out in the middle of the day. That became a routine for definitely the first 2 years, you know, until and then I started teaching in San Pedro. Higgin came to me and is like, "Oh, there's one of my old students. He has this location in San Pedro, at Gaffey." So we went there. It was on Main Street. I didn't know much about San Pedro because I was living in Redondo, Orange, Redondo, hanging out in Hermosa. So my world was around the area. They used to have a school in Pasadena. I helped them open that school there the first time. Actually, it was actually the first place. Was right after teaching the beginners. I started teaching over there as well. I was teaching in the mornings there. Uh, right, I think it was in beginning 2000. We found a place. I helped Higgin. We made The construction we didn't do. We did the destruction. We went to the place and broke all the walls. And I didn't know anything about construction, but I said, man, I can do the destruction here. Give me a hammer. And then we started getting the place ready. So I have the Pasadena school too. But for me, it was a long drive. And I didn't want to move to Pasadena. I was like, I wanted to train. So I was like, man, if I go to Pasadena, what's gonna happen? I'm gonna be stuck there, and I'm not gonna train anymore. I'm gonna be instructor. So I spent probably a year there too, teaching in the morning there sometimes, and then I said, man, I can't do this anymore. I just stay there. And then sooner or later it happened. The later it happens. The St. Peter came about, and then I was teaching in St. Peter as well, and then coming and training, going to John Jacques and teaching a private at Foothill. So it was like a lot of stuff going on at a time.
Wow. And so what, and I guess you can say, what inspired or motivated the transition for you to open your own school? How did that go down?
Well, uh, when I I was in San Pedro. It was pretty much my school. It was a Machado school. Uh, but he can like say, "Oh, you just can run the school in the beginning." After that, he's just like, you know what? The school didn't have a lot of people. So I started teaching the school, and then that's when I started to become a teacher here in the United States. In Brazil, I was already teaching. I started teaching there when I was 17 years old, when I was a purple belt. So I had a group there. I actually have one of my black belts from there that's living with me here, is living in San Clemente here with me. Uh, he is my student since I was 18 years old. So, so yeah, I was teaching there, but still, my goal was like to keep learning and learning. And then at that time, was my first encounter in having a business in the United States, because I knew about jiu-jitsu, but I knew nothing, how to run a school, in Brazil, it's basically have like a little notebook that you take notes of your students, and when they pay, you put a mark, oh, this guy pay, and you have to go after them, call them, hey, you didn't pay the membership, and they disappear for 2 months, and it's a nightmare,
Yeah.
at a time. And then here they started to have like more organized and computers and stuff like that. But I think, man, I thought if people would just see the side jiu-jitsu, people would come. But that was like in 2003, and it wasn't quite like that. Like jiu-jitsu wasn't that popular in 2003 as it is today. Not a lot of people in San Pedro. And San Pedro was supposed to be a tough town, a bunch of, guys from longshoremen and stuff like that. But at the time, it was coming a couple of guys, and I started to get more into learning how to get people in, but also teach. We built a good group. We built a good kids group there. Actually, my kids at the time were like, they were really good. They were like winning every tournament at a time. Yeah. But then I think, yeah, what happened is 2006. Or in 2005, I decided to move to San Clemente. Oh yeah. So what happened is in 2005, the owner of the location told me, "Hey, I'm gonna sell the building, okay? And the owner is gonna, and I think they're gonna get in and demolish the place, this and that." So he's ended up selling the business. And I got a letter say, "Hey, in a good number of months, we're gonna, you know, demolish the building and build a new building. And if you wanna, be teaching there, we're gonna quadruple your your rent." And that's how it's gonna work. So I started to look for places in San Pedro, but at the same time, I was like, man, I like to surf. I like to be close, like to the water, and I was already surfing in San Clemente. Had a place called Trestles, so I was going there and surfing. And then one day I decided to go into the town, and I look, and I think, man, this is a really nice town. And then I look around for jiu-jitsu there, and I saw one guy at the time. His name was Randy Bloom. He's like a Joe Moreira black belt, I believe. And I think, man, I think I can compete with this guy here. All the other places I wanted to go, I have friends there. I like San Diego. I knew Rodrigo and Fabio Santos were there. Santa Barbara, Franginha was there. Santa Cruz was like Claudio was there. Like San Clemente, I think I'm gonna teach. I think I'm gonna teach there. I decided in 2005 to move there and start to figure out ways to open my school there. And while I was still having a school in St. Peter before they demolished the place.
Mm,
So then I eventually moved there, and it became a little bit of a hassle to because at that time I was teaching, I was training in Tarzana. So San Clemente to Tarzana is like 2 hours or so,
yeah.
or more, depending on
More. It's traffic.
tomorrow on a good day.
Yeah.
And then I was coming back, and I was in Redondo. Sometimes I stopped there. Sometimes I train in Higan there, or have lunch there. And then I was going after that to San Pedro and taking a nap on my friend's couch, and then teaching over there. And I did that for a while. And then one day, I found this guy that had a Cajo Campbell school here in San Clemente. And the guy, actually my roommate found the guy and talked to the guy. And the guy, yeah, yeah, we would love to have jiu-jitsu there a couple of days. And then I opened over there. And then that's the beginning of my school, the real Guillobel Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu school. Until then, I didn't have, was like, I was teaching for the Machados and in a variety of places.
And then from there, you developed what you have today. I mean, because, you know, here's what's interesting to me. A lot of people come and go. Being a Southern California native, I've kind of seen it all. Interestingly, you have been kind of like a mainstay of the Southern California jiu-jitsu scene, basically from the beginning,
Yes.
if you think about it. So I'd love for you to share with us what you've seen in terms of how it developed, either evolved positively or devolved negatively. But I'd love your perspective in terms of how it's developed over the last, gosh, 25 years. I mean,
25 years.
I can say from my perspective, but I was still coming up. You were already established at that point. So can you share with us your perspective on terms of how things have
Well,
changed?
25 years, we had a lot of changes. When I got here, um, was like a few people teaching in a few places, right? I remember was like Redondo Beach was actually the most popular place. Was like the Gracies were there, Horion and Hoyce, and then Higan, the Machado school. They were the two biggest school around, probably the biggest two schools in California. So Machados have like, oh, I think at the time we got there like 200 students at the time, which for me felt like wow, because in Brazil at the time we couldn't put 200 students in the place. They're paying. So they have that, and then I think the Graces were kind of something similar. So they were like competing a little bit for the same territory at the time, which we thought, because everybody that was 20 or 30 miles, even like 20 miles away from each other, were considered to be in the same territory. You know, I remember we had like Kleber Luciano at Huntington Beach, and then Rodrigo and Fabio Santos in San Diego. Maybe Carlos over there too. Valente was there, I think. And then Franginha and Santa Barbara and some. So every place was like either one person or nobody. And we all knew each other. I knew Kleber from Brazil. I knew Franginha. We grew up like competing the same belt, the same levels. Rodrigo, I fought Rodrigo a couple times in Brazil. So we were kind of like, when I got here, I felt like, okay, we're in this situation. It's kind of family too because we knew each other. We tried to spread jiu-jitsu to the world, and people didn't know much about it. Like the UFC at the time wasn't very popular. I only I think within the martial art world. They didn't have, there was like a pay-per-view at a time. There's still pay-per-view today, but it was like the government, I think, was kind of like, Jesus, it was too bloody, I guess. They thought it was too bloody. Um, for some reason, it didn't catch up, you know? So they, at that time, I think Pride was going on in Japan. So we knew about the Pride, the Pride fights there, but I don't think a lot of people knew it, the majority of the people, you know? I remember people coming and asking, like, if jujitsu was like karate. And that's one of the things I heard the most when I was, like, running the business back in the days. It's like, "Oh, is this karate or something? Or what is the difference between karate and jujitsu?" You know? And that was terrible at the time because I like, how am I gonna explain the difference to somebody on the phone? I can explain when somebody call in the school, I have the guy, I can show the guy, right, but the guy on the phone, and I didn't know, like, "Hey, come over here and I give you a free." I didn't know all that. So I was, like, trying to explain on the phone, and it was terrible because, like, "Oh, yeah, no, we don't have any punches and kicks. We know how to defend them, this and that. We do locks and chokes." And people, "Oh, we don't have punches and kicks?" "No." And then they're like, "Ah, okay, boom," turn off the phone, you know? So it was like a situation that we have to battle, we have to, uh, sell it more at a time. Uh, but then, start growing, people start coming. And I think one of the reasons that grew in California a lot, well, I think, no, I'm 100% sure, was because of the IBJJF. So IBJJF had his first tournament here, I think the first big tournament, I think was the Pan American of, first was Pan American 2003, was in Santa Barbara. And then the second one was 2004, was somewhere in Gardena, Carson. I think it was Carson City. And I remember even like Jean-Jacques telling me, like, wait and see. After they start having tournaments over here, everybody's gonna come here. Out of like 100 Brazilian black belts, 10 are gonna stay, and then another 100 are gonna come, and then 10 are gonna stay, and then it just keep growing and growing and growing. And that I 100% happened because of the tournaments, because they start having the major tournament here. Because they were having like local tournaments. Caliber was having this tournament, Hickson was having a tournament, and so was having a tournament in the first 3 years that I was here. But after that, they start having the international tournaments. The Pan American became here, and then I think in 2007 the World came here, and then when the World came here, and then that's it, and then everybody found out about the United States, found out about California, um, and then we also wanted to have some of the other high level guys coming around and training. So I remember sometimes they come around and they come to train with us, the Machados. Like stop by there when they get practice for the tournament. So since then, you know, we start opening up schools everywhere. Um, and then obviously when you open up schools, you teach people and they want to open schools, and then it just kept going and going and going. Um, and that's where we are today. Today we are this basically I remember, like, I was thinking about, "Oh, I'm not gonna go to San Diego because Rodrigo is there." So Rodrigo teaches in Pacific Beach.
Yeah,
How big is San Diego?
it's huge.
Today's San Diego has, what, 200 schools at
Yeah,
least?
yeah, easily.
At
Yeah.
least because
Every corner
yeah,
is one you can just keep bouncing around like jujitsu tourism,
yeah,
Every day
and
you
I
can go
I
to a
was
different
I
school.
was concerned about having a second or third school there. So that was funny at the time, but today is like, you know, there are schools everywhere, which is a good way. It's good, it's good and bad, right? The good thing is because, you know, proves that Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, because people they didn't know, they start seeing Brazil. Back in the days, it was like karate, 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 taekwondo, 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 karate, karate, karate. Oh, a little Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu there. What is that? You know what I mean? Today, no, today say Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, 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 karate, Jiu-Jitsu. Even probably even more Jiu-Jitsu today than karate, at least in my neighborhood here. You know, so I think now people, when they look for jujitsu first, and that one of the causes of that is the fact that a lot of people open schools, and obviously the UFC becoming very popular, which carried us kind of on the back, to the majority of the people in America, you know. So in one point it's good. And the bad part is obviously more competition, have more competition, so everybody has to do their job a little bit better, I guess.
How would you characterize the effect on these different tournaments and rules on the styles and expressions of jujitsu that we have today? And the reason why I'm asking you this is you are known for being a badass. You take no prisoners. You're not a patty cake type of guy. There's no such thing as a Guillobel student that's a pussy. There is a level of expectation and standard with your students, jumping the gun a little bit here, that is typically not seen at other places. How do you think, this is why I'm asking you this, because of your wisdom and your experience for so many years, that these different tournament rules have changed the landscape of how people are digesting jujitsu, because they're
Yes.
not coming out as Gilo Bell style students being tough as nails and that type of grit.
Well, I think the obviously the rules will build the sport, right? Will build the martial arts, right? Like jiu-jitsu in Brazil, for example. Let's talk about foot locks, heel hooks, and knee bars, right? The rules back in the day, they're not allowed a lot of those things, so they got forgotten, right? They got forgotten. I remember growing up when somebody used to get a foot lock, or just a foot lock on somebody, people used to boo that person. You know, the whole crowd used to boo that person. And so why? Because of the rules, right? They start making rules. They're like more leaning toward, the clear the submissions like arm bars, triangles, and stuff like that. Um, the point system, like they start having point systems, and people start to emphasize a couple things. And then got to the point now that, for example, IBJF got so complicated with the rules, because people start developing, finding ways to go around the rules and take advantage of that. So now, like, then it turned out to positions that people create to stall and to you know what I mean. Then this is one side, right? So, for example, when I watch IBJJF, I think. Uh, I like the gi. I love gi, but I think sometimes the rules they allowed and everything, like use of the lapel, people are using a lot of stuff to stall. You know, I like to see a fight that's kind of like moves. Not a guy that's wrapping the foot 100,000 times on his lapel around the guy, around the neck, behind the leg, and they hold there. And then the guy cannot move, and then the referee give the guy a penalty because the guy can't move. He just can't move. He's all wrapped up. And then they move and then end up, and then along with that came what? Like the no-gi and also other competitions. Today they have what? The fight to win, which they prioritize submission, right? I think of not who's number one of those. There's pretty much like rounds, and the referee say, "Oh, look, whoever attack more win." Even though the guy mounted you, got your back, but if you got the guy in this lock and that lock, I actually like that. I think that has a lot to do with the core of jujitsu, Because for me, jujitsu is basically this: two guys, they fight until somebody taps somebody. You know what I mean? That's what it is. That's how it's supposed to be. You know, Obviously the rules change that because we have points and all the system, which it's okay because imagine if every competition was two guys fighting and to tap somebody, it would be pretty boring because some fights would take 2 hours, right? But some fights would be super cool, super good to watch, and be super, so it would be something mixed. But those tournaments, they start to prioritize submissions. And then Abu Dhabi, the ADCC came in, and they start prioritizing, no gi, allowing people to do submissions that were technically illegal in the IBJJF world, which opened a can of worms of a completely new world of submissions, you know. And then today, I think Jiu-Jitsu, in a way, benefited from all those things because they are all, in a certain way, submissions. If Jiu-Jitsu is a self-defense, you know, every submission should be considered, right? Because when let's say in a street fight, you don't need to think, oh, I cannot do a heel hook, I cannot do this or that, because you know you should be able to do whatever is necessary to win that match. You know, so I think in a way it helped. I know some of my friends will say otherwise, but I actually embrace the fact that we have in my school now. I make a distinction, right? When you train the gi, you do those things. But we train in no gi, we can do all those other things. You know what I mean? In this way, we have this distinction. So the no gi guys, like to do the heel hooks, the knee bars, the knee bars, ankle locks, all the stuff. They can play there. But the guy that want to be safer, you know, and play the more, jiu-jitsu that we used to, that he can go on the side here and play that along with the most of the rules, the BJJF rules and stuff like that. Because we also have to be able to make sure that our students are safe, and sometimes some moves are not too safe in the beginning, especially for beginners. Now, in terms of toughness of the student, I think it comes from each instructor. I came from a old school jiu-jitsu, so it's hard to take the old school out of me, even though I came here and I try to adapt a little bit, because if you're too old school here, we'll have no students nowadays. But for example, Jason, your friend, right, my student, he came from the time that we were training really hard. We were like training 2 hours. We were training, it was kind of old school. I wanted people to puke. I was like, and by the way, all right, Jason, you puke a couple times. So he ended up puking a couple times when we train. And I was like, yes, I got one guy to puke here, and train, because I wanted to make sure they train until they couldn't train anymore. So there's something that came with the mentality that I grew up with, you know.
Yeah, it's I just don't see that anymore. I get a lot of people that come to visit me from different places because they want to learn, like, they want to learn catch wrestling and different styles of wrestling that I teach and stuff like that. And or they want to just work on their stand up. Because I did want to ask you this. For me, as I always like to say, I'm a judoka first. Number one, I don't allow anybody to start from the guard, and I don't allow guard pulling. You have to start standing with me anytime we train, no matter, any type of randori, any live rounds, you always start standing. There's no such thing as a fight that starts sitting on your ass. So there's no such thing as training that starts sitting on your ass. And I don't allow guard pulling ever. You do that, I'm going to punch you in the head. So I noticed that people, even as they supposedly are brown belts, black belts, whatever, have no stand up whatsoever. They have no base, no understanding of how to, if they want to get the fight to the ground, they have no understanding of how to get the fight to the ground. They have no standing ability. I see that a lot. I know people come to me a lot of times for that, to learn to refine that, to add that into their arsenal. But how do you balance that?
Well, I like to teach stand up. I trained judo for a while. I trained wrestling as well. I remember when I got here, Higan put me to train with Rico Ciparelli for like for a while. So, and I trained judo in Brazil with Geraldo Bernardes. He's like the coach of the Olympic team there. Um, Not like I did. I wasn't his student per se. I was already black belt when I was going there, but I was going there i- Tuesdays and Thursdays, on Tuesdays and Thursdays, to train with all the black belts. And so, plus, I grew up in an environment of self defense. So, in self defense, is a lot better when you take somebody down. You don't want to be on the bottom when you're fighting somebody. You know, you can be because jiu-jitsu gives you the chance to be, but you don't want to be. Like I be on the bottom of fights, and I be on top of fights, and I can tell you, like 100% is 1,000 times better to be on top of the fight. And I talk about real fight, not like a jiu-jitsu match or anything. So, considering that jiu-jitsu is a martial art, I believe the guy that doesn't know takedowns is not a true martial artist. In terms of he's missing. Well, he might be a true martial artist, but he's missing uh, the big point of self-defense, and he is not thinking that way. You know what I mean? And if something happens to that person, he's already setting himself to be in a disadvantageous, I don't know if that's a word, but in a worse position, right? Uh, like imagine I'm gonna fight somebody, the guy get close to me and I pull him to the guard. And now the guy has gravity. He can punch me in the face from up. And I have to like find the ways to stop him from punching me and try to sweep him and get an armbar, you know? Like if you get a good guy on top, it's not that easy. You can tell, like, for example, I'll give you a good example. Mark Kerr and Fabio Gurgel a long time. I don't know if you ever
Oh,
watched
yeah.
this fight.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Mark Kerr was on top of Fabio Gurgel for like 40 minutes, and then it was a tough situation for I 100% sure if you give Fabio a choice, would you be on top? He would have taken that any day, right? At that situation, at that fight there, he didn't have a chance because he fought a wrestler that was a professional in takedown, right? But I believe, like, like I personally, in my fights, most of the fights, I try to take the guy down. Obviously, sometimes when I'm training, like, depending on the situation, if I fight this guy that's really good on the ground, and then I'm in a tournament, and I know he's not really good on his feet, and if I pull him to the ground, I'm going to have an advantage. I know sometimes I use that as an advantage, a strategy. But in general, my students too, like we fight more uh, on our feet. We usually try to fight on our feet because something I think was past. I 100% believe you have to know how to take somebody down, and you have to know for take somebody down. You have to know, like you said, you have to know how to walk. You have to know how to move the guy. You have to know, technique is not just drill like steady. You have to know how to move. You have to know how to break grips. How to fight for grips. There's a whole world of things that when you go into the ground, you ignore it completely. So yeah, I'm 100% a believer that, you know, for jiu-jitsu competition, IBJJF or other competitions, great. You pull to the guard and then you win, right? But again, jiu-jitsu is a sport, but it's also a martial art. You got to be able to teach your students both. Otherwise, we're just a sport, right? We can be considered a martial art. It can be only a martial art if you defend. We're teaching our students to defend to someone on the street, right? Somebody attack them, they need to know how to defend. Of course, if they good on the bottom, and they know nothing on the top on takedown, they're gonna end up on the bottom, that's for sure. But they might find a way there to sweep the guy, get the guy with some kind of lock or some kind of submission hold. That's fine. But again, is not as pleasant. Uh, I've been like I don't know Diego Sanchez, right? When he trained for BJ Penn, I was training with him. I was sparring with him. And one day there, man, he was like on the last 2 weeks, and the drill started with me on the bottom already, and he was already like, training. He was ready for the fight. When I was, coming there to train with him occasionally, I wasn't like training for UFC or anything. Man, he was like punching and doing all stuff. It was a very uncomfortable position that day. I was like, man, like even though you can defend yourself, I know how to defend myself in the bottom trap, this and that, but get a guy that know how to slide and throw a punch there, and once the one punch hits, and then the jujitsu kind of like now you really have to have everything on instinct because
Mhm.
you're not thinking right. So all those things have to be considered, in my opinion.
Yeah. All right. Do you watch any of the popular jujitsu competitions these days? Like
Yeah,
you see like guys like Gordon Ryan, the Tackets, Rotolos.
I watch everything. I
You
watch
do.
everything. I'm a student. You
So
know,
who do you like? Who are you into? What styles and what people do you see that really impress you?
okay, we mentioned one of them, right? Gordon Ryan. I know some people are gonna, be mad at me to say that because they don't like his personality. Um, But I think he proved. First of all, he fought people with basically 45 minutes, 40 minutes, and tapping everybody. And you see that his technique is very sound. He's very sound. You know, so I really like to, especially on top. When he's on top, he's really, he destroyed most of the guys. He has a sometimes a more of a competition with Felipe Pena. So those two go over there. Felipe Pena is really good on the bottom as well. So he's one of the guys I look around, I study. Um, you know, Sometimes I study not too recent guys. So usually, depending on what I like to do at the moment to improve in my game, I study in a certain person. So Gordon Ryan, I usually study from the perspective of, no gi top, and also a little bit of the ground. He has a really good ground game, but there's other guys that have good ground, like like Craig Jones is another guy that stands out. Tackett, there's a good guy that out. Ratolos, like uh Giles, is a good guy. Marcelo Garcia, like some guys that have amazing ground games. So when you try to study those guys, I look into those guys as well. Um, in the jiu-jitsu world today, I like to watch sometimes Roger Gracie. Um, I love to watch him the way he also controls on top. I like close guard. He likes close guard, so I try to study his guard. On the top, I like to Lucas Lapri is one of the best passers in the world. Now I have Tai Tainan. Tainan is from AOJ. He's a really good passer, and good guard, very good, very very round game. Nothing too fancy. It's very just like the basics well done. I like to watch those guys. So usually depends what I'm looking for. Sometimes if I want to do a spider guard, I like to watch the guys that do spider guards. For the lasso guard, I want to watch the guy lasso guard. So I try to study based on what I wanted to learn, and then sometimes and then I start seeing the guy's patterns and then I see, oh, that's what, because sometimes people, let's say we buy a instructional thing. So a lot there that the guy won't do it. They do like five things that they do it, and then 20 other things just to fill up the tapes and everything.
Mhm.
So we start seeing the patterns. So this is what he does. This is what he does when see this happen and stuff like that. So yeah, on the no-gi world, I definitely, there's other good Brazilians, but heavyweights. Right now, I don't think in the heavyweight division nobody got close to Gordon Ryan yet. He's very methodical. Until somebody beat him, he's the guy that I like to watch in the terms of passing. In the term of excitement, there's a couple other guys there. They're out there. You mentioned one of the Packets, right? He's a
Yeah,
very excited young guy. His fight with Rotolo was like an amazing fight. It was like a
beautiful.
very entertaining two young guys going at each other. You know, and Rotolo guys, I know those guys since they were 5 years old. You know, like I remember watching them winning like as a white belt kids, you know, like fighting and being those two brothers, you know, like already when they used to train with Clabber way back in the days, you know. So yeah, so kind of those are the guys. I have a plenty, but those are the guys lately that I'm
Hmm.
watching. Those names that are being like mentioned over there, you know.
So let me ask you about MMA then. And, I guess not to dismiss any other organization because I think they all have value, but since the majority of the world sees the UFC, let's just kind of, I guess you can say,
Yes,
focus
yes.
on the UFC unless there's somebody that really sticks out. Who do you like in MMA? Where do you see the grappling aspect of MMA going?
Well, the grappling aspect is this: you cannot take it out of there, right? If you take the grappling out of the fighter is incomplete, you know? So the grappling was always going to go hand in hand with MMA, which is a good thing, you know? Will be some strikers, like for example, Anderson Silva, right? He was more of a striker than a grappler. And it was really tough for the grapplers to go with him, right? Because, you know, he knew how to not to. So there's a lot of guys there that know how not to be taken down, and then they are able to survive. But there's always a situation that they can be taken down, you know. So they have to go and practice the ground as well because it's part of the fight. This MMA is basically made of pieces, right? Jiu-jitsu is one of the pieces. Takedowns can be judo or wrestling can be one of the pieces, and then the striking, which can come from Muay Thai, kickboxing, karate, taekwondo, whatever styles they bring to the table. Lately, I will tell the truth, I haven't been watching too much. I've been watching UFC for a very long time, so sometimes a fight comes, but and I like it. You know, I love like the Brazilian guys for Pereira, right? Like,
Yeah, he's brilliant.
yeah, he's a guy that I like to watch. But he's more of a striker, you know. But he's one of the guys who represents Brazil. I used to love to watch George St. Pierre. He was one of my favorites back in the day. I like Khabib. Khabib was always a guy that was able to bring the ground to jiu-jitsu, obviously to ground to and effectively bring the ground, because also he has a very good, strong background in wrestling, so I believe, yeah, those two also, wrestling, jiu-jitsu has to be also connected as well because especially for UFC and fights, like you have to be able to take a partner down, have to be good at that part. Because again, you want to be most of the time on top. I don't see people in UFC besides Kron Gracie. You don't see anybody pulling to the guard. You know,
What a
uh,
disaster.
Damian Maya was a guy that I always liked because he was a guy that merged the style pretty well at the time, and some other ones, but I believe, like there's gonna be always gonna be situations like that. It's gonna be a guy that's gonna be predominant on striking. There's gonna be having his good run, you know. But eventually he's gonna, I don't believe those guys are always improving their jiu-jitsu as well. Even with the guy a good striker, he's predominantly a striker. The like backstage, like behind the scenes, they're practicing their martial arts, they're practicing their jiu-jitsu, they're practicing all the skills. They're always trying to improve their style. So I think it is, I don't know how much more the one of the things that like that the UFC because when you watch jiu-jitsu and watch grappling, there's always new stuff coming up. UFC you don't see that much, you know. I can stop watching UFC for a long time and watch again, and then it's pretty much what I was watching before. You know, it doesn't change. The guy's not gonna punch any different than they're already punching. He's not gonna kick any different than he's already be kicking. You know what I mean? It's kind of the same thing. It's just how fast they execute, how sharp they execute. You know, and yeah, on the ground, every once in a while you'll see some guy bringing something from from the nogi world to it, uh, and getting the guy. But but still, the most common submissions you see is going to be grabbing the back and choking the guy out, or getting the guy in the guillotine. You know, those things were ever going to be there. So it might change. Oh, the guillotine now is going to be more over here. Now it's going to be more on top of here. But they don't change as much as when you watch like ADCC, for example, and you see guys being creative with submissions and even takedowns. You know, so that's something that sometimes like I love UFC. I watch it once in a while, but I'm not like more like I used to. I used to watch all the time. Now occasionally when it's a really good fight, I go there and watch a little bit, or sometimes I watch the rerun of the fight. It became too much for me and too much of the same.
Yeah, it's a lot. Now, I don't know if you heard this, and Adam, I want you to chime in on this as well. They just announced for January 24th. I'm really picking this fight out because I think it's going to be incredible. Kayla Harrison versus Amanda Nunes. I think that's going to be a very interesting fight because there's a backstory there that Amanda Nunes left that gym, American Top Team, because Kayla Harrison was coming up. And so now Amanda Nunes is coming out of retirement to face Kayla Harrison for the belt that she had given up, right? The 135-pound belt. So I'm curious what you guys think about that matchup, that fight, and what could potentially happen.
Be a good fight. Be a good
Okay,
fight.
here,
Yeah, it'd be a good fight. Yeah.
yeah,
You got world class grappler, world class MMA fighter. It's not like Amanda Nunes can't grapple. And
yeah.
uh,
I think. Go ahead.
no, you're right, go Paul. It's all good.
Oh, I think obviously it could be a good fight, right? But coming back from retirement is harder than the person that's on ascending, right? There's one thing called momentum. So let's see how the momentum is gonna, how Amanda is gonna have to go around this momentum there because she's gonna have to find her own momentum now. You know what I mean? And maybe it's gonna be the rivalry, the anger, or something that's gonna spark that that energy to be there. But definitely, you know, uh, it's gonna be something to watch. Something to try figure out how that's gonna play out.
I sort of also think there's advantages and disadvantages for both girls. Like if Amanda comes back, like Paulo said, it's hard to come back. Yeah, if Amanda comes back and beats Kayla Harris, she's the goat. Yeah, if Kayla Harris beats
Yeah, true.
Amanda, that's because she was retired. It's not a real win for Kayla. They go, you didn't fight her in her prime. She was already retired. It was a comeback fight. It's kind of win-win for him. Kind of win-win for Amanda and lose-lose for Kayla.
So here's a couple of things that I look at, a couple of factors when considering that fight. Number one, I appreciate both of them as fighters. I think they're both excellent. So they both impress me tremendously. Number one, I kind of heard through the grapevine. And, it's funny. People don't realize how small, even though everything is worldwide, how small our community is. The fight community, the grappling community. It's actually very, very small. You can get information by one or two phone calls, and then you get whatever information you need to have. I was told that even though Amanda retired, she's been training this whole time. In the back of her mind, that she was waiting for Kayla to ascend, get the title so that she could come back. She was just kind of saving herself. Now, like you're saying, Paulo, that's kind of a double-edged sword, because even though she could be training every day and staying in shape and even pushing herself hard, there is something very real about that adrenaline dump
Yes.
when you're in front of 20,000, 15,000, 30,000 people. No matter how much you're training, there's something different when you have that adrenaline in a cage
Yes.
with worldwide millions of people watching and all that. So that's a massive factor right there. But I did hear that she's been training nonstop since she supposedly retired and got her motivation has been sitting on this. Now, from Kayla's end, I know Kayla's been training very hard, and I agree with you guys that ascendancy that she has, that's going to be very tough to beat. Where I think Amanda is calculating this is that the fight is at 135, not 145. Kayla Harrison walks around at like 175 pounds. She's a big
It's crazy how
girl.
people lose weight to compete. Like
Okay.
the
She is a big, massive girl. Even if Amanda walks around at 155, you know, she's still cutting a significantly less amount of weight compared to what Kayla has to cut. Whereas Kayla even said in that last time she fought, like, I don't know how many more times I want to keep doing the 135 because it's killing me,
yes.
So that's, to me, an interesting factor, because it's not like Amanda said, oh, let's run this at 145, because she gave up. Remember, Amanda gave up 2 belts when she retired, 135, 145. So she could have said, oh, okay, let me come back. I had all this time off. I've had 2 years off. Let me come back and do the 145 belt. When George St. Pierre gave up the 170 belt, what did he do? He came back and fought Michael Bisping at 185 pounds, right? Even though he looked great, he's just like, that was too much weight for me to carry. But
Yeah.
Amanda, I think, very strategically, this is like, let's do this at 135 pounds. So I think she's trying to use that weight cut to her advantage, knowing full well that weight cut for Kayla Harrison is debilitating.
Yeah. Well, I think makes sense because she will have a disadvantage for coming back, and she probably try to get some kind of advantage, because otherwise coming back is a little bit of disadvantage. You can't deny that.
Absolutely.
That's for sure. I remember, like, even to compete jiu-jitsu tournaments, if you spend 2 years without competing, it's always better to compete something before a major tournament. Just go, oh, well, 2 years non-stop, I'm gonna just jump into the world championship. Like, it is more difficult, right? It's not impossible. It's more difficult. Maybe she's also considered the fact that she considers herself a lot better than Kayla. You know what I mean? She might be considered that. I don't know how much they know each other from training together, but the weight can be something. But if the weight, if she made the weight before, she can, even though she doesn't like to make the weight, she can make the weight. That's the thing. So yeah, it'll be interesting. When is it going to be? I don't know.
It's January 24th.
24th. Okay.
So
Like
we're
2 months from
about,
now.
yeah, so it's about 2 months out. I mean, if Kayla Harrison has to already be in camp, here's the thing. She's so big, she has to start her weight cut now.
Yeah. Well, she got to be really good at doing it quick.
But it's just that when you have
Yeah.
those, especially with women, the a lot of times that deep weight cut is a lot more challenging.
Yeah.
Just
Because
the
it retain more
mass,
water.
yeah,
Yeah.
the physical mass of Kayla Harrison is very significant. It's very, very significant. And so for her to be able to do that, she needs to start her weight cut now in order to make sure that she's, not to say like you're saying, Paulo, I agree with you 100%. You can do, a shorter weight cut, but I think about it like
That
this.
drains you. That drains you a lot more.
Exactly. That's a very intense drain if she's doing a shorter weight cut at that weight percentage going from 175, even if, let's pretend, which I do not believe this is true, but let's pretend right now Kayla Harrison is walking around at 160 pounds, which for her would be almost impossible because she was cutting to 155. Remember, Kayla Harrison, when she first started fighting, she was fighting at 155. And that's a 20-pound weight cut for her. 155-pound fight, MMA fight for Kayla Harrison, is a 20-pound weight cut. So now she's doing like Islam Makhachev. She's doing these 40, 50-pound, 40-something pound weight cut. It's got to be a slow trickle down, because to me, I'm looking at this. If she's cutting more than 10 pounds week of, she's going to be in a lot of trouble. Go ahead, Adam.
That's what she'll be doing. Exactly what you're saying, Brian. She'll start 2 months out, 8-week camp roughly. She'll be starting to cut weight now. Yeah. By the time it comes down to that last week for the weight, she'll only want to be dropping 10, 15 pounds, no more than that.
Yeah.
That'll be it.
I agree.
Max.
10, 15 pounds.
Yeah, 10, 15 pounds max at the last minute, in that last couple of days. She'll be down, maybe 140, something like that, 145 by the time 155. 155, 160 by the time she's coming in. And then, what do they fight? We're fighting at 135, yeah? So she'll be down to like 150.
135.
Yeah, so she'll be...
Yeah, she's got to be at least 150. She'll be looking to get to 150.
And then in the last week or so, that's where she'll drop that last 10 to 15 pounds maximum. And if she doesn't, she will debilitate herself so badly trying to cut any more than that in the last couple of days. After that first round, a bit of pressure, the gas will be gone.
Yeah, we're definitely gonna notice that in the fight. Like, how well she did cutting weight, you're gonna notice that probably on the third round or something like that. If they go to third round, because that's when you start to, feeling the weakness of the weight.
And I think the other thing on top of that, guys, which you guys are very correct. We have to remember that Amanda Nunes knocked out Chris Cyborg, right? Who is like the unstoppable striker, right? Who, again, is another person that walks around 170, 175. So power is the last thing to go. And Amanda hits freaking hard. Okay. She has a good reach. She hits hard. If her confidence is there, she's stable at her weight. She extends those punches. If she tags Kayla, I don't think anybody's going to hit Kayla as hard as Amanda can. So even though she's fighting these girls, if Amanda plants and hits her and just finds that target, that weight cut, remember, we all know this. That weight cut is very significant in terms of your sensitivity to your brain and what kind of strikes you can absorb. Amanda needs to touch her once to make this a very one-sided fight. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but there's a potential there. And this is the thing with MMA. 100% you're correct, Paulo, when you say like you can take 6 months off of watching MMA, a year, 2 years off, and you may see more refinement, but it's the same thing: punching, striking, grappling. Go ahead, Adam.
I was just going to say, like it will be a case of Amanda hits Kayla once, that's going to decide the fight. May not knock her out immediately. Personally, I think it would. I think Amanda Nunes can knock out any woman if she lands one on her in the right spot. Good whack on the chin. I think she'd put anyone to sleep. But we'll be looking at Kayla, how Kayla's going to fight that fight. As a judoka, I would imagine, or I would hope, that she doesn't do what Ronda Rousey did and start striking with a striker. I would hope that Kayla would use that size and that judo to pressure and close that gap to not be on the end, right in the target zone of those big punches. The more she can pressure Amanda Nunes, the more Amanda's going to have to work. Because whilst Kayla will be cutting a lot of weight, she will also be putting a fair bit back on before she gets in the cage. Yeah, you get what I mean? So she's going to have to make Amanda carry that and really pressure her the entire time and get to that grappling zone, get out of that, get out of the pocket right where you're standing in that contact point, get underneath it, get her against the cage and really make her carry her weight a bit. That's the only strategy that she could go with. If she's going to stand toe to toe and try and run and stuff, she's going to sleep. 100%. I guarantee if she doesn't get in and put pressure on Amanda to try and shut down that striking, Amanda will put her to sleep.
Correct. And I think when you heavier, you carry the natural weight of being heavier. So when you're 175 pounds, you're naturally heavier than a person that walks around, naturally stronger than a person that walks around 155 pounds. You know what I mean? Even when you lose weight, that strength doesn't go away. It might feel like, weakness, on the long term, but natural strength, like if they're gonna arm wrestle each other, you know what I mean? Like that's 175-pound strength, the girl carrying that on a daily basis, give her a certain advantage on the weight, that's for sure. So that would be interesting. Now I'm curious.
Yeah, that's going to be a fun fight. So I'm seriously looking forward to that because that's the thing with MMA. When people ask me, who do you think's going to win? I don't know. I'm the worst at picking fights, and I've been doing this for years. I've coached, I've fought, this and that. I never know who's going to win. It's one punch and the fight's over. You can slip. Hey, look, how many times have we seen somebody shoots in the wrong way and all of a sudden their neck gets wrapped up, right? Or we think this is going to happen and then somebody breaks their leg against a kick.
Yeah.
Or you twist your ankle and then you're choked. Anything can happen.
One of the things of UFC that's amazing is this: anything can happen. There's no way you can predict 100%, like, oh, put all your money on that guy, because again, anything can happen, man. We saw a lot of underdogs beating good guys, That one can be one. There's other things you mentioned too that's funny, is like, you were talking about the girls fight. I actually love to watch the girls fights in UFC. I think it's very technical. It's actually, I like them. I like to watch them more than I like to watch the guys, because I think, like, because they have less strength, they have to be more technical, and they're more technical. Sometimes they're more technical on their feet, and they're more technical on the ground as well. You see a lot more ground going on with the girls as well. I don't know if you noticed that, but you know, I every time I look back in the days, I remember back in the days when the girls started compete to fight, I was like, that's the time I took a break out of watching. I was like, go eat something, and then go watch the guys afterwards. But nowadays, even in jiu-jitsu world too, like I think now the girls got to a certain level that is interesting. It's so interesting. So we're talking about two women that are gonna go, and then that's gonna be a hell of a fight. And we know that, this what the level that the girls have achieved nowadays in martial arts, So it's maybe it was always there, but now, you know what I mean? They're mixing stuff. There's girls are like, they train so hard, and they come from other, like, Muay Thai or some other martial arts. They put those things together, and they're displaying all their skills in UFC. So that's something cool to watch.
I don't know if I've ever told this story, but to your point, Paulo, years ago, I used to go when I was living in LA. I used to go do privates with Henry Akins, who's a Hicks and Gracie black belt, and at the time he was dating a young lady, was a judo champion and an Olympian by the name of Ronda Rousey.
Okay.
and this was before Ronda was even in Strike Force. So this is way before the UFC even had women's fights. And she was just getting ready to start fighting in Strikeforce. And I would see her, she would come in and be training. Like I would do, so I would go do lessons with Anthony Hardonk, who's a Dutch kickboxer. And then I'd also be doing privates with Henry Akins, and Ronda Rousey would be in there because she was dating Henry Akins at the time. So she would have her training usually right after, I think it was usually like right after me. So I'd come in, do my private with Henry, and then she'd be in there in the cage and in the room and whatever training with Henry. And she was so aggressive at that time. The thing that marveled me about her, I mean, her judo was spot on. It was perfect. Her grappling was amazing. And I'll be honest with you guys. I thought her fighting style was better with Henry Akins than when she went to the Armenian guy in Glendale. It was actually better. And I think that the Armenian guy, it dipped her skill. But one of the things I was marveled at is how big her shoulders were. You see the same thing with Kayla Harrison. You know, even though I'm taller than Ronda Rousey, her shoulders from all the judo and everything she
Yeah.
was doing were massive. I could not, I'm like, God damn, this girl's thick. You know, and at the time she was not fighting at 135. She first started fighting at 155 as well. And then down to 145. I don't think I could be wrong, but I think her first 135 fight was in Strikeforce, but it was like halfway into her Strikeforce career. I could be wrong about this. I'm not, but I remember there was a sequence to Ronda's weight cutting, but I remember seeing her going, wow, this girl's thick.
Yeah.
And her movement at the time before she went to the Armenian guy, and I forget his name. He's forgettable. And her striking was actually way better when I saw her training with Henry Akins, because I would sit there and just watch her, and I'd be like, "Oh wow, this girl's good," you know. And you'd hear rumblings, "Oh, this girl Ronda Rousey, this judoka champion, this and that. She's starting to fight." So I'd just sit there and watch her after my lesson, and she always really impressed me. And unfortunately, you know, when that relationship between her and Henry Akins came to an end, she switched camps and this and that, and I felt like some of her skills got twisted up. But boy, that girl, to your point, Paulo, she was an incredibly gifted listener. That's what I saw. And her technicality, but she was a bruiser, man. She was big. But her technicality, and I think this just came from the fact that she was basically doing judo since she was born. Her technical skills were unbelievable to watch.
Yeah.
Just
He
her
showed
ground
that.
game.
She showed that on the display. And I think
Yeah.
it's fun that you mention her because she actually, I think, was the first one that actually, you know, brought everybody's attention to the women world, women's world there. I think it's the one that was like, oh wow, look at that. And then from there, everybody wanted to beat her. Everybody wanted to be like her. I think she definitely the one that started this whole thing right now in terms of the way the level that the women has achieved nowadays. She must be the cause of all that,
Yeah.
as
Because
far as I remember.
you had girls before that. Like I know Gina Carano, that was everybody liked her. But from a technical
Yeah.
skill
No, yeah.
perspective,
Yeah.
at the time, Ronda Rousey was special. She was
Taking the people
special.
down,
Yeah.
unbarring people like
Oh my God.
a lot.
And I will say this because I was there. It's different when you're watching it 10 feet away and you're watching the repetitions and the skill. And, you know, I'm sitting there watching for 2 hours, just sitting there, just chilling, watching her train. Um, it was very fun to watch that progression and just watch her skill boy, that girl was skilled. Regardless of what, like you were saying about Gordon Ryan and his personality, regardless of what people thought about Ronda Rousey's personality and her temperament as her career progressed, her skill and me watching it firsthand, I can say without a shadow of a doubt, she was remarkably skilled. And she deserved that center stage because she was doing something, and she elevated the technical skill of all the females fighting, to your point, Paulo.
Yeah,
she
I believe
elevated
so.
everybody's technical prowess and their desire to get better and be technical. Because you had to watch out that if she got a hold of you, you're fucked. Back then, you're getting armbarred. You're not getting out of it. If she throws you, if she back in the day, if Ronda Rousey got her hands on you, the fight's over. Right? We all saw it coming.
Yeah.
It was like Mike Tyson in the 80s, right?
Yeah.
If he got inside through that hook, you're done. You're getting knocked through the ropes.
Yeah.
And that was something very special. And I very much am grateful that I got to be there and watch her in action training, because that was something really special to watch that progression.
For sure.
So, anyways, let's wrap this up. Paulo, how can people follow you? How can they find you? I highly recommend people come out and visit you. So how can they find you?
Couple ways. One, since I'm here, let's promote it. I wrote this book a long time ago. Master 21 Immutable Principles of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is on Amazon. It's been there for 10 years. Has sold a bunch, but if you're a beginner, it'll be great. You guys check it out, see if you like it or not.
Let's get that book.
I'm here in San Clemente. You can find me on Instagram, Paulo /Guillobel, or guillobeldojo.com. But basically, I'm here in San Clemente, California. People want to come here, go show up at the school. Awesome. Okay, just give me a call. And it'd be great. Even you guys, you are local, man. You should come.
I know Hughes has told me, you got to come down, but he trains at 6 o'clock in the morning, man.
No,
6 o'clock.
He's
crazy.
I haven't seen him in a while since he started training at 6 in the morning. Cause I'm the 9 o'clock guy.
Yeah.
I'm not in the 6 in the morning.
Man, 6 o'clock, I'm getting up, getting my kids to school and this and that,
Yeah. I get up early too, but to train, I prefer 9 o'clock,
Yeah, that's early.
Adam is over there like at 5 in the morning, right, Adam?
Yeah, I don't train till night. I don't even train in the mornings anymore. It's too early.
Yeah, that's I think that's the funny thing, right? The older you get, the harder it is to train in the morning because my body's just not awake. Everything hurts.
Yeah, it hurts. Especially when it's cold.
Yeah, when it's cold, between my herniated discs and the arthritis and the tendonitis and everything else. Thank God, Jason. Let me tell you, I got to give a plug to Jason since they're one of the big supporters of the show. Rejuve Anti-Aging in Rancho Santa Margarita. Jason fixed my shoulders. So torn rotator cuffs, slap tears in both shoulders. I went there. I did the stem cells, the PRF, and the exosomes in both of my shoulders. My shoulders have not felt this good in 30 years.
Wow. That's
and
good.
if it wasn't for Jason, then Jason go, man, I wish I got my hands on you on the mat before your shoulders got better. This is bullshit. I'm like, that's not fair. But honestly, Jason and his team, let me tell you, I cannot recommend Rejuve Anti-Aging enough. Tell him you want the Level Up grappling discount. You go in there, he's going to hook you guys up. Amazing guy, amazing place. Paulo, have you been there to the place?
Not yet.
Dude, you got to go.
He's trying to get me there.
It's beautiful. Tell him you want the Level Up grappling discount. He's going to hook you up.
Level Up grappling discount. Yeah.
But let me tell you something. That place is amazing. I'm there all the time, and it's fantastic. It's a beautiful place, and they are so kind and so wonderful, and it works. It works.
I
My
have to
shoulders feel
because
amazing.
it's not usually is I sent Rancho Margarita, Santa
Rancho
Margarita,
Santa
right?
Margarita, yeah.
Yeah. So it's not quite next to me, but I'm definitely due to go over there for sure. Because he's
You
keeping
need to
invited. But I
go.
haven't seen him because he's showing up at 6 in the morning now,
Oh,
and
it's 6
I just
a.m. So.
hear from him. Like, oh, Jason was here. Okay.
And then I also, cannot recommend Paulo enough. Just remember, guys, make sure you know where the trash can is to throw up because Paulo's going to beat you
No,
up.
not
I'm kidding.
anymore. Not anymore. I'm getting softer as I'm getting older.
And then remember, guys, one of the other sponsors of the show is SpartanCans.com. So don't put www, just SpartanCans.com. We got these amazing little cans you can get. I got a PCI logo on here, but you can actually get these custom made and get anything you want, any kind of logo you want on these things. So you can get a discount there. The discount code is LUG, L-U-G. That's for Level Up Grappling. You can go in there. And we got a third sponsor to the show that actually just came on recently. It's called Road Gears, ROADGEARZ.com, for some of the coolest motorcycle riding apparel you can get. They hooked me up. I got a pair of their jeans, their riding jeans with the armor, CE rated armor. Let me tell you something. I got them in the gray, and it looks better than the pictures in person, but these are some sexy jeans. Adam's going to love it when I wear it for him. Shake my tush for him. They are, not only are they super comfortable, of all my riding jeans, they're actually the most comfortable, but they look great. They don't look like bulky riding jeans, and they are Kevlar lined. They got the CE rated armor in there. Awesome, awesome jeans. So I can't recommend them enough. Road Gears with a Z.com. Discount code is LUG. Also, I'm trying to keep all the discount codes the same. So LUG, go in there. If you ride, if you don't ride and you just want a jacket or a t-shirt, they have that too. So you can pretend and just be part of the gang. And yeah, this has been great. Paulo, I cannot thank you enough for coming on, sir. And I'll have to get down there and come hang out with you guys.
Please.
Yeah. And with that, gentlemen, we are out of here.